Well, hello everyone. I'm Brandon Bonifer, and you are on Focus. And it is Small Business Week here in our great country. And this week and throughout the month of May, we are going to be featuring businesses in our area that are just really just making its way through this pandemic and just shining. Today, I have with me Nick Arnoldy from Marshfield Insurance. Now, before we get ahead and meet Nick, tell you a little background on what we've been doing here. Over the last few weeks, we've been interviewing with business leaders, community folks, and people in the organizations that are just really making Marshfield and our greater area move forward. And we've had a lot of good feedback from all of you in the content we've been doing. And we really just appreciate you guys giving us the stories and just the kind words and encouragement as we continue to embrace this pandemic ourselves. Now, as you guys can tell, I do have a haircut. My wife was so generous this weekend to take clippers to my head, and I think she did a pretty good job. I will be going back to my barber when that opens back up. But until then, this is what you guys got. So Nick Arnoldy, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
Doing good. Thanks for having me, man.
Well, Nick, it looks like you're in your office today. Does it feel good to kind of just kind of stretch your wings a little bit there and get back to work a little bit?
Yeah, to get out of the house, right? I mean, that's a blessing.
Now,
hold on. I got a visitor. Come on in. Hey, Nick, how's it going? Oh, Mr. Nat.
Hey, how you doing?
Our Zoom meeting here. What are we doing? Look what I got.
You look good there.
Hey,
awesome.
Thank you. For the folks that don't know, this is Nat from Wheelers, and also you familiar face at Mission Nutrition, and he brought me my my lunch.
Now I know something about Nat.
You won't say what you said yet.
Now I know something about Nat. I bet you don't know, and I bet you a lot of our audiences don't know. He kind of had a stint on a pretty national televised TV show, which a lot of people right now are probably gearing up to watch, right?
A couple years back I did American Idol, actually. What are we doing, guys? What's going on?
We're just talking about what's going on here with some of the businesses. It's National Small Business Week here in Wisconsin and across the U.S. And we're just starting a campaign to kind of meet with different small business owners and just talk about what they're doing, how they're trying to reopen their businesses and just grow traction during this pandemic. And you kind of got your hands doing a lot of different things. Obviously, you're delivering a good wholesome shake there for Nick, but then also you work down at Wheelers selling new cars and just helping people in that avenue. How's that been going for you, if you don't mind me asking you?
Honestly, it's crazy you asked, but we are busy. The people we're open for everybody, for the essential people that need to get to work. I mean, if they break down, they need a vehicle, they need reliable transportation. Our service department is open. Honestly, we will run out of vehicles. We were talking about that today in our meeting, and Daniel Wheeler said, hey, let the people know that now's the time to get it, because with General Motors being down for COVID, it's hard to get vehicles out. We're buying as much inventory as we can to keep the people getting what they need, but we're going to run out. I'd tell you by the end of June, 1st of July, we'll be out of new cars. So now's the time to get it. The rebates are amazing. And I'd say if you're in the market, come on down. We're here to serve.
Well, even talking about, we'll expand beyond rebates a little bit. The interest rates are at an all-time low. Plus, they have, I think it's GM Finance is offering 0.84 on new cars for qualified buyers.
Yep, the Yukon XL, they just extended that. That's something brand new for this month. Yukon XL actually have 0 for 84 for the first time that I've ever seen. I've been hitting the phones, just letting everybody know if you're in the market for it, now's the time.
Well, and a big thing too, we're in a big medical community, as Marshfield Clinic and Marshfield Clinic Health Systems is here, as well as many other dentist office, chiropractors, and a lot of people that work in healthcare. Every year, GM offers its first responder discount program, and I've seen advertised over the last few weeks that they've expanded that discount to include first responders.
The medical field, so nurses, doctors, even the people that work in the cafeteria. Those are people that work in the medical field. They're keeping things going, and we've extended that out. General Motors has to say, hey, come on down. We will extend out the supplier discount, which is a discount that I get for working there. We're actually extending it to others as well. So it's really cool what GM's doing to help out the community.
Yeah, and it even expands to cover even those that are in the veterinary field, chiropractor field. I see Nick here kind of nodding his head. He goes, I could be a chiropractor, couldn't you, Nick?
Nat hooked me up. I wasn't even in the market. The deal was just that good. I made a switch when I was down there seeing him for various work stuff, and with that 0% going on, it made a lot of sense. So Nat hooked me up with T today. He's just doing it all for me.
Well, it's nice to do small businesses and help each other out, eating at the areas in town and just supporting the community. I love Marshfield. I'm not going anywhere, and I just think it's great. Mission is just something I like to do on the side. I've lost 97 pounds in like 8 months. It's crazy. And it's just through healthy eating and a healthy lifestyle. And ever since then, I know Nick, he enjoys the teas and stuff. And I heard he ordered one. I'm like, oh, I'll deliver it to him. So how crazy it is. I step in on this. I didn't know this was going on. And I just thought, I was like seeing your smiling face, Brandon.
Yeah, this is pretty special, isn't it?
No, it's good to get another viewpoint, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just the thing. Marshfield is one of those communities that a lot of people know everyone, right? And everybody knows a lot of people. So when we have a chance to kind of, abide by this safer at home order, it's really good just to try to, share connections, keep people feel like they're still part of the community. And that's what we've been trying to do here the last 6 weeks, is really just trying to give everybody an opportunity to utilize our platform, connect with it, and share. We got some really powerful stories coming out this week. There is, we've seen a lot of parades for people that have had their birthdays throughout Wood County and in the greater Marshfield area. But we're going to see our first parade for teachers tomorrow night. So you guys are going to stay tuned if you haven't. Actually, Tuesday night, in case this recording doesn't come out until tomorrow morning. But there is going to be some students that are going to give a parade with their parents for a teacher who's celebrating a birthday here in the community. And that's just, if there's anything that comes out of this pandemic, I think George Bush really said it well in an address that he gave over the weekend via a YouTube video that he published, that it's an opportunity for us to really embrace one another and see that we're all still Americans. And that is a really powerful thing that we all share. We might come from different walks of life and have different beliefs, but we all still live in America, which is home of the free and the brave. So we're seeing a lot of good things like that. And seeing you guys, being able to get around the town and support those businesses is a testament to that as well. And we've seen a lot of businesses over the last 3 or 4 weeks, really have to, 2:00 on one day, they were being told by 5:00 they had to shut their doors. And a lot of innovations come out of that. I've seen a lot of business owners that I would have thought have kind of like found a groove and are sitting in that groove and riding that wave, really just have to be stopped in their tracks and say, hey, we're going to try something totally different and embrace it. And we're hearing a lot of encouraging things from businesses that have seen areas of their business either greatly improve, seeing new opportunities. And I think what's going to happen as we reopen and get back to what we would consider norm, those opportunities are really going to move those businesses forward. So if you're not a business that really hasn't embraced the digital world or found a way to connect with customers, now is really the opportunity to still do so because it's going to make a huge impact. I think people are accepting that having that social connection online is really powerful.
Absolutely. I'm on a Facebook group that I got invited to the other day. It's actually called Adopt a Senior. And I thought it was a great concept. It was, somebody was like, hey, let's take care of our seniors who don't get to celebrate their senior year. And it was literally the senior posted about themselves, where they're going to go for this next year. And it's just a way that you can send them a small care package. It's right through Facebook. It's Senior High, Adopt a Senior. And I was going through them, and I didn't know who I was picking, but I just picked one of them. And I was like, hey, I'll send you a care package. I mean, it's just a great way. It's showing the togetherness of this community and how Marshfield really does look out for its own. And I think that's pretty special.
Yeah, I saw a powerful post that I shared over the weekend, or maybe it was even on Thursday of last week, talking about if you were born in 1990 or 1900, all the things that you had to face. By the time you were 14 or 19 years old, you faced World War I, you've seen World War II, you've seen the Great Depression, you've seen the Spanish flu, you see all these different things. And I just kind of stopped in my tracks, and I look at some of the graduating class now, and those that are, have graduated in the last few years. I mean, they are, 9/11, the recession in 2007 and 2008, now this. There's something about major events that changes humans' lives. And I would hope that everyone that's experiencing some type of change, they look for the opportunity to make themselves a stronger individual. They really try to motivate themselves to power above it. If it be, as simple as, you said you're going to work out before this happened and you didn't. get and do it. You know, you say you're going to read a book and try to self-improve. Now's the time, the opportunity to do it. Maybe you want to teach yourself something, or maybe go and learn something online that you haven't thought about doing in a while. There's a lot of opportunities to improve yourself. And during these types of circumstances, you always got to look for the best. And a lot of people look for the best inside of themselves first.
Yeah. Well, listen, I better get back to work. I didn't need to butt in.
No problem.
We'll see you later, guys.
On the way out.
Hey, good to see you.
Brandon.
I'll be watching the premiere of American Idol.
Yeah. Thanks.
I want a performance later. See you, boys. See you, man. Thank you.
You didn't know he was on American Idol, did you?
This is news to me, and I'm going to request some version of. I knew he sang at church, so this is. I did not know about the American Idol. That makes for. I mean, I had a TV debut, but this was spring break many years ago on back when MTV never really played. Never really played music.
Did you get the $5 to stand on the beach?
But you know, it was a game show for a date with Jessica Simpson. My roommate and I made it on there.
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, we didn't get real far.
Because you had to know something in advance, or what?
Hey, in our defense, they eliminated 75% of the guys by spinning a wheel, and yeah, the wheel did not follow our direction. So, but it was fun. It was cool.
Now, Jessica Simpson, that would have probably been back during Dukes of Hazzard.
A little before, because this would have been in March of 2001.
Still a good time. Keep her moving, right?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Speaking of that, thinking of 4 Rogers here.
Yeah.
And keeping her moving. Obviously, this pandemic, this is a pretty big event, and it's one that really contributes to your father and all those that, you know, are facing these same illnesses out there. When this pandemic came up and you knew the golf courses would be closed, did you kind of have a moment of hesitation about what you might have to do with the event?
A little bit. I've erred on the side of optimism. It looks like the golf courses, they're not fully open, but I think we're at the point right now where people can get a cart. It might be 1 to a cart. I'm not sure if they have 2 people in a cart, as long as you're in the same household. But here we sit, beginning of May. The 4 Rogers not until mid to late July 22nd to be exact. I don't foresee, and neither does the golf course, although anything can happen and it's not up to us, that at that point we can have a golf outing. If you go past the golf courses right now, when the weather is nice like today, they're operating pretty well. You see a lot of people out there in carts. So, you know, I think by July 22nd, there's not going to be any issues to have a golf outing, especially one for charity. So everything is green lighted at this point. I encourage people to sign up. Charlie Barons, like you had mentioned, is going to be there and helping us raise money. We probably would have filled up already if it wasn't for the COVID. So there is some availability left. If for some odd reason it doesn't take place, obviously sending that money back. But by all indications, I think we're going to be just fine having that event.
So 2 things. Quick overview for those that don't know. What is the 4 Roger tournament?
Yeah, so the 4 Roger tournament is the charity, or the fundraiser is to raise research money and also money for anything that anybody in the community that's suffering Alzheimer's or dementia that might need, medical equipment, get utilized for that, and obviously research for Alzheimer's and dementia. My father in 2012 passed away from Lewy body dementia, so thus the name 4 Roger. We picked up a fundraiser or a charitable event that used to be for Bill Allen, that they ran for 10 years. And after 10 years, they had a lot of time and money invested and kind of handed that off to us. And we're going to raise money for a different cause now. So in honor of Roger, we're going to get together, raise some money for research and for some medical equipment for some families in the area.
So obviously behind you, I see a picture of your father.
Yeah.
And I believe that's a picture of you in the background as well?
That's me. Yeah, that's me. I'm picking my teeth. Yeah, I don't think I can zoom in on this. And there's Dad. That's my son here, Mason. But yeah, that's Raj right there.
So tell me a little bit about this quarantine. Did you take the opportunity to grow out the stash at all just to try it out?
It's funny you ask. A very good friend of mine, Travis. What's up, Travis? He grew the most epic handlebar mustache. And I said, I think I need to grow that in. And Raj always had the, I don't know if you can see in the picture there, always had a mustache, but, I've been considering maybe having a quarantine sort of different setup here, but I was advised not to by my better half. So no, just the beard.
Copy on that. So talking about quarantine a little bit. Actually, no, back up one step here. You said Charlie Barons.
Yeah.
There might be a few people on this channel that don't know who he is, but he is a comedian in Wisconsin. He does a weekly show for the most part called the Manitowoc Minute. That's really what he's famous for. He's a comedian. But through this pandemic, he's been doing a lot of cool content. He showed, really kind of showing Wisconsin in a different look. He showed how to make a Bloody Mary. He showed how to make a pot dish or a hot dish. And just, working with the instruments he has in his house as he practices the order at home. How excited are you to have him at the tournament?
Amazing. In the past, we've had some retired Packers, just to kind of give it a little different flavor. We had met Charlie through an insurance convention, of all things. So to kind of change it up just a little bit, I reached out to him and his team, and he had the availability on his calendar and was willing to come to the event and make it even more fun for us. So super excited, especially those who follow him know how funny he is, how well he represents Wisconsin. And it'll just make for a great day having him there, and people get to visit with him and take pictures and whatnot for charity.
So we'll fast forward back to what I was saying before. A lot of us, we had a really nice weekend this weekend. A little windy. The previous weekend was pretty nice. I got a little bit of a sunburn, as some of you might be able to tell, mowing my lawn for the very first time. But seeing a lot of people, a lot of families getting out. And you posted online here, I think it was early last week, just about trampolines and homeowners insurance. As people maybe are looking at purchasing a trampoline for the very first time, or trying to do some outdoor activities that might create some type of risk for them, what should they be reviewing on their homeowners insurance policy?
Yeah, so especially in quarantine, everybody's looking for some different things to stay busy, and trampolines have they've been a long issue for liability with insurance and homeowners policies. With your homeowners policy comes a liability limit. Typically, that's around $300,000. So the insurance companies want to know if you have one. If you do have one, and they've relaxed the restrictions on them. It used to be only certain companies 10, 15 years ago would insure you if you have a trampoline. And if you don't tell them, they usually find out via external inspection, which they do annually, biannually. So the big thing, now that most companies will insure them, it's really not a problem. It's just to have a net around them. If you don't have that safety net, typically you're not going to find a market that's willing to insure it. Sure, you could remove the net and have it out there and have an active policy, but on a few of those inspections, you're going to run into issues. And really, just furthermore, it doesn't take too much to kind of bounce incorrectly and head out the side, and I think everybody wants to be safe anyway. So I think all of them are sold with those nets, so just make sure it has a net. Make sure and tell your insurance agent. There are a few markets that actually exclude the trampoline liability, and you have to buy it back. It is not an expensive thing. It's typically around $50 annual, give or take a couple dollars. But just to make sure your agent's aware of it so that you have that liability on there. So let your agent know, make sure it has a net, and you're good to go.
So you mentioned 350,000 as
300,000, yeah. So it's about the average, but could be more, could be less.
In some cases, does it make sense for someone to consider purchasing more insurance?
Yeah. Buy what you can afford, absolutely. But going from 300,000, which is probably the most common liability limit on a homeowner's policy, up to 500,000, which is typically the next step, it's usually about $20, $30, $40, if that, annual. And then from there, you're looking at getting a personal umbrella, where that starts at $1 million liability coverage. That's usually right around $200 a year. It really just depends on number of cars and drivers and number of residents, if you got a cottage and whatnot. But I've heard someone put it, actually a customer one time, say that their umbrella is the best deal in insurance, that, for roughly $200, get $1 million liability. But I would say price out different options, take what you're comfortable with, because in this day and age with medical costs and litigious items, 300,000 sounds like a lot, but really isn't.
Now, for you bring up a really good point there. Shop it out a little bit. You're Marshfield Insurance Agency, right? What
Correct.
a lot of
Yep.
people may not recognize is you don't just carry one carrier. You have multiple sources that you work for, and you really work for the customer to find what is the best and right coverages for them.
Right. Yeah. So we're an independent insurance agent. So what does that mean? It means we have contracts with multiple insurance companies. You could call up Geico, for instance. All they sell is Geico. You could call up State Farm, great company. All they sell is State Farm. When you call it independent, like Marshfield Insurance, we have markets, whether it be West Bend, Acuity, Cincinnati Insurance, Allstate, Progressive. We look at all options on the home and auto side, the personal side, and also the commercial business side. And we use all of our available resources to get the best coverage and pricing option for you.
Now, through this pandemic, a lot of us are at home, and I've been covering the news for a number of years now. I'm just over 3, and throughout that time, I've seen a handful of situations where people have lost their home through fire and whatnot. And in a couple of those cases, that's a really stressful time, because at the same time is not only you're losing your house and your belongings, but from your side of it, a lot of work has to be done to try to claim your belongings back, or be able to utilize that insurance policy you have. If you're sitting at home right now and you're listening to this, I would encourage you to, first thing that you do is jump on Marshall Insurance agency and check out the blog post that you guys just put out there about home inventory checklist. How many times in the last few years, Nick, in our area that you've had a house that maybe was on fire or had to make some type of claim, did this checklist just come through as just such an important piece? Yeah,
in every total loss or even a partial loss, you're going to be working with your adjuster to make an inventory, a loose inventory, a lot of times off of memory of what was all in the house. And that's a real difficult thing to do, a day or 2 or 3 after you just lost your house, to remember what was all in there. That's what we're encouraging people to do ahead of time, especially now during the pandemic when you're home and maybe spring cleaning and whatnot. You can either make a list of the important items, but what is actually probably more efficient is take your iPhone, take your Android phone, and make a series of videos and just walk through your house. And keep that somewhere off-site, or better yet, come on into the office here and we will save it on our servers that get backed up in multiple places. So then if something does happen, you're not sitting down with a pen and a paper trying to be like, we had 4 TVs, I had 7 pairs of jeans, and that's what the process becomes as part of it when you're making a big claim like that. It's typical, and it's hard to do at that point. So if you have it done ahead of time, it's a lot easier. And I'd say just do it annually if you can. Yeah, and you mentioned how many pairs of jeans you have. I look through my house and I think automatically, okay, I have X number of TVs. I have, number of computers. Those are some big ticket items. I got 2 vehicles out in the garage. Not sure if they're destroyed or not by a fire. But then I start to look at the macro level of some things. I open up we still have a DVD player, still have a lot of DVDs from when I was younger. And I bet you there's 100, 150 DVDs just in that bookcase there. Could I name every title if I had to remember? Absolutely not. But having a video of those, I'd be able to at least go through, and if I needed to, being able to read off the names and get some kind of better list. So yeah, I can see how at the very least, doing the video, it will help jog your memory and give you some evidence of what it is you have. But the checklist that you have is really nice. You kind of break it down by room. There's a space in there that you can basically kind of put some type of when something was purchased, and then essentially what maybe that value is. Yeah, and just to kind of reiterate, they don't get too deep into the weeds, and I know we're talking about like every title just as an example when that does happen. But the reason that they do it, if you look at your home policy, which maybe people do when it gets mailed out every year, you're going to have a limit for your house, and then you're going to have a limit for your contents. And companies just don't write a total check for that. They'll work with a contractor, get it rebuilt up to that limit. And usually there's a little bit of padding, 25% above that limit. And then when you look at your contents limit, which is what the inventory is, you could have a contents limit of 150,000. They're not just going to give out the 150,000. That's where the inventory comes in. Just to kind of reiterate, that's your limit. We'll pay up to that, but did we actually have that? So you can write down the 7 Rolex watches you had, but got to be within reason, right? So it's just easy to have a video or have that list ahead of time, which it's just such a pain to do that after the fact. So.
Well, I only have 2 of those watches, and one of them always got on my wrist, so hopefully that won't be as hard.
But did you get into DC, where people sell them around the monument there? It's a Rolex.
Hey, this is online. This will be here forever.
Yeah.
So we talk a lot about personal liability and those that are at home, some things they can be considering, but there's a lot of businesses out there that are really considering reopening here, hopefully sooner than later for a lot of their sake. Have you had any conversations most recently with businesses about, hey, if I open and someone gets sick or an employee gets sick, what are some of my liabilities?
Absolutely. That conversation, in the last week has been had a couple times. The big thing is there has to be negligence. And there's 4 elements to negligence, and that's a duty owed, a breach of that duty, causation, and then damages or injury. All 4 parts have to be there in order to be negligent, and for you to be responsible to pay, and typically a court says if you're responsible or not. It doesn't stop the lawsuit, though, so you can still be sued and be innocent, right? So for those businesses that are concerned with that, their general liability policy typically is a policy that is called, has a duty to defend. So even if they weren't at fault for somebody getting sick for coming into the store and they get sued, your policy has a duty to defend you. So they will pay the legal cost to defend. If it's found that you're negligent, then they will pay those damages up to the limit of insurance. So just want to check with your policies to make sure there's no virus exclusion, which sometimes, depending on the class of business you could have, it can be bought back in most cases. But typically, for most businesses anyways, that's not on there, especially like a restaurant or something like that. So.
Well, Nick, that's a lot of good information. I'm sure if people have questions or want to learn more about any of these coverages, they can definitely reach out to you or someone in your office. I know that you guys are definitely there to serve the community, whatever aspect, if it be online, if it be through a phone call or email, you have all those technologies in place. We've seen a number of commercials, a lot of different insurance companies over the last month offering rebates and refunds. And through your list of carriers, it's no different. What does it mean for some of these carriers to offer these rebates and refunds to their customers, essentially your customers?
Yeah, well, I think it's the right thing to do. Their exposure has been minimized with the pandemic, meaning there's less drivers on the road. That money that was allocated or saved or put aside for claims like every company does is just not getting paid like it was. So a lot of companies and some of the companies that we have that have rebates right now are Acuity, Allstate, Auto Owners, Badger Mutual, Kemper, MetLife, Progressive, Selective, and West Bend. They're giving some premium, mostly on the personal auto. So they're giving, for example, a lot of them are doing 15% off for the months of April and May, and then they'll revisit that as things keep going. So nothing that they need to do. Any customers that have policies with those carriers, there will be automatic. And some of the carriers haven't decided how they're going to make that, if they're going to send a refund check or just a credit. I imagine it's going to come in the form of a credit on the bill. It's just more efficient that way. But they have announced those discounts or rebates. So yeah, we do have a good portion of the companies that are doing that already.
Well, knowing that these carriers are offering these rebates and refunds, is a lot of that has got to be somewhat reassuring for individuals that, have these policies in place and are under some type of financial burden at the moment. Maybe if they're not working or unemployed, or just simply worried about the future, the fact that these companies are giving back a little bit where they can, that is huge. So Nick, as we kind of move forward and we kind of wrap up this podcast today, any last minute advice or thoughts that kind of maybe things we kind of brushed on or skipped over a little bit, or just things that are new at the agency in Marshfield?
No, it's for us, it's business as usual here. We are all here and accounted for, being quote unquote essential. Luckily, most of us are separated by offices or cubes if need be, but I think we've been lucky in Wood County, so it hasn't been a huge issue, but we do want to be safe. But we also want to be here for everybody. So if you need anything, we are open to the public. We ask that everybody be safe. Obviously, if you're experiencing symptoms, be respectful, just like you would at the grocery store. But if anybody needs anything, it's business as usual here at the office, and we're just happy to be open because there's a lot of businesses that aren't, and hopefully we're on the downhill for that.
Sounds good, Nick. I appreciate you tuning in today. It's been great to kind of cover some stuff. It was great for your visitor to be on the show. Yeah. Now you have to get him to sing here in the future.
Mission Nutrition, and I had for lunch the kitchen table. If you haven't eaten there, check it out. I mean, I'm just spoiled here today.
I had my wife's cooking. I was very much spoiled too.
Right on.
That's the best I can do. Guys, if you like what we're doing, hit the subscribe button, follow our page. We'll continue to bring the coverage that matters most in Marshfield. As we make it through Small Business Week, we'll be hand-picking and choosing individuals and business owners throughout the community that are really embracing what it means to be American, home of the free and brave. And for those of you that want to share your stories with us, go ahead, hit us up on Facebook, send us an email at news@onfocus.news, or just give me a DM. I'm Brandon Boner for OnFocus. Until we see each other again, stay tuned.